Hello everyone, this is the second video of the chapter 8 lecture about popular culture. And in this video, we're going to talk about 5 main characteristics of pop culture. And hopefully through that, we will see what this pop culture, which is a really fuzzy thing, because as we discussed in the first video, there's no content that defines pop culture. The content of it changes. It's like a moving target as time goes, and depending on the times, people like different things. Different things become quote unquote popular and typical in our society, right? So it's really a moving target, but there are some general characteristics, and those are: first, popular, inclusionary, commercial, trendy, and finally specific to age groups. First, pop culture is popular, and you go like, Shin, of course, it's right in there in the name, right? Now, that was not really helpful from the textbook, so let me rephrase. It's every day, right? Adjective, every day. As in, most of us, unless you're coming from either really social elite or different groups, for the most of us, right, we engage in a pop culture almost every day. Today, I don't know if you're watching this in the morning or evening, but if you're watching in the morning, yesterday, did you watch any TV show that can be considered as a pop culture, like sitcoms? Did you watch any movie on Netflix that could be considered as a pop culture? Did you listen to any songs on your Spotify or something that could be considered as a pop culture? Did you play some games that could be considered as pop culture? And by this point, or did you watch some sports that's very popular, like soccer, Premier Leagues, or anything? And if that's the case, yes, you did pop culture. You spent some time on it. If you didn't spend more, a lot of time on it, right? So really, it's how the mass, many of us in a society use our free time, most of our free time, really, research suggests. So in this sense, popular culture is different from high culture, which is culture for social elites and economic elite as well. For example, going to watch opera. Have you ever watched opera? Right? There's like actors singing, beautiful voices, and there's sometimes even live orchestra in front of you who are making the music live, right? Even cheap one, it costs you like a few $100s. If it's a really good one, an expensive one, depending on location, it could be several $100s, if not more, depending on the seats as well. It's not just that sometimes the money as an economic elite in a society, but also sometimes you have to be educated in a certain way. For example, some of the operas are traditionally Italian. Do you speak Italian? Do you understand Italian? Do you understand the basic plot and ideas, right? Do you have some abilities to discern what actors are doing, what directors are doing in this particular programs and particular basically session? So many things. So it's not just about money, but also social skills and educations and all that. In many ways, it's a quote unquote high culture. Right? It's made for a very limited group of people with a certain resources that they have and privilege. Now, popular culture is also different from folk culture, which is another interesting type of culture, which is often very traditional, right? If not conservative. And usually in a rural area. It's not in a big city often. It's concentrated in a specific locale, like for example, a certain part of Alberta does certain things, for example. And often it's communicated, it's passed down from generation to next generation through basically doing together, and telling that story, describing that, not through, for example, media, right? A lot of pop culture go through media, like TV. So it's very distinct. Pop culture is distinct from these different types of culture. And it's every day. Now, secondly, pop culture is inclusionary. Sounds good, but here's what it means. It allows large heterogeneous or diverse masses of people to identify collectively. For example, Disney. If you go to Disneyland, maybe Disney Resort in Florida, Orlando, you'll see a lot of different people. People from different racial, ethnic backgrounds, different gender groups, right? Different age groups, different nationality. There's actually unofficial LGBTQ related events actually at the Disney too. Did you know that? Actually, there's a March. I think it was March something. I think I could be wrong. So there are different types, a large heterogeneous masses of people really identify with, Disney. But maybe not identifying with it, but also still enjoy it and enjoy it pretty deeply. And Disney becomes, for example, in the case of especially in the United States, becomes really American thing, right? And maybe now it's very global because, again, in the case of Disney, we have one in Paris, which is not successful. We have one in Macau, I think, which wasn't not so great. Shanghai, there's a newest one. Tokyo, very successful. It's everywhere. I mean, it's in Europe, it's in Asia to an extent. So the global, really people in the world, around the world, really identify with the Disney culture as well. And that's what pop culture does. And that's what we mean by pop culture being inclusionary. Now, through shared popular culture, people can be connected to their larger culture. That's what it is, right? The global culture, whatever that we have across the world. In the case of America, really Disney is an American thing in many ways. The cartoon of it, kids watch it growing up watching it. And many people have those goods with their Disney characters every day. Watch movies when it comes out, right? Some of them are really controversial, but a lot of people watch it and they identify with it too, and they get connected to the larger American culture with each other to an extent as well. Third, pop culture is commercial, and then probably this is very obvious to you, but to make that point. Pop culture is really leisure that is marketed and sold as a product. It's for money making, really. There's no secret in that. And for example, a textbook talked about singers, right? Singers, female top grossing, and top earning musician, I think. The chapter said that it was Ariana Grande in 2019, which actually is wrong. Probably she was at the point the textbook was being written in the middle of 2019. But by the end of 2019, it was Taylor Swift, according to Forbes magazine. And it's not just top female earning. She is the top earning musician, by the way. Including male and female and anybody else. It doesn't matter. Taylor Swift was the king. Now, she made $185 million in 2019 only. I know, that's a lot of money. That makes me feel like, hey, that's a good career over there, right? Anyway, but if you know, there's a Netflix show, a documentary called Miss Americana, which is all about Taylor Swift, which I wanted to watch. I haven't had a time, but maybe I can watch after this semester. That's a lot of money. And the reason why Taylor Swift can't earn this much money is it's a commercial. And maybe, I haven't watched the documentary yet, but if you watch this documentary, maybe you can see how this, her performances and everything are commercialized, right? They are marketed and made for money making. She may feel struggle with it, maybe. Maybe that's this Miss America now is about. I don't know. But maybe you can see that too. Another example of pop culture being commercial is the movie, because we really talk about, we judge the success of each movie, those pop, Hollywood movie mostly, based on the money, right? How many tickets they sold, basically, across the world. And if you actually, search it in a human history, they're, top grossing films, top earning films. The most sold, basically, grossing film is, for now, Avengers Endgame, $2.8 billion US dollars. That's a lot of money again. Close second top is Avatar, which has been a while ago. I don't know if you must have been born probably, but probably you didn't watch it live. $2.8 billion as well. And Titanic, again, it's a long time ago, $2.2 billion. And Star Wars, The Force Awakens, was $2.1 billion, and it was a fourth. Now, if you look at these top four, really, clearly, Avengers and Avatar and Star Wars, they're pop culture. Yeah, it's really epitomes of pop culture. Titanic, and maybe not, but based on their actors and actresses, maybe you consider it as a pop culture as well. But you can see how pop movie, quote unquote, a popular movie, Hollywood movies are making a lot of money. And that's exactly why movie companies and directors are making these movies as well. Fourth, pop culture is trendy. And by trendy, which is kind of tricky because it kind of sounds like popular, right? What we mean here is that it's short-lived. Popular culture responds to what is contemporary in our life. What is hot, quote unquote, hot now? What is now? What is really now? So once popular things are inevitably not popular later, it changes. If you look at the history, it's clear. For example, musician, right? Elvis Presley was there. There's like other rock bands. It changed. The pop, quote unquote, pop rock changed over time. The people who were, your parents, for example, the type of music your parents listen to, probably you're not going to listen to that. You're not listening to them, right? And that's because pop culture, pop music is trendy and short-lived. However, actually, this version of the textbook doesn't make this joke, but the author, Dr. Russell, she loves apparently the Rolling Stones, and Rolling Stones is one of those bands who just keep going and keep selling and keep doing that concert. So, and they're still doing it. So maybe there are some exceptions to an extent, but also this is an example of things started as a pop culture or pop music or pop TV, and they become something else, right? They still kept watched by some people, but this is no longer necessarily pop, but it's still loved by a certain group of people. For example, for me, Friends, it may or may not be pop culture anymore, but it's very nostalgic, right? I learned English through that, so it's comforting. I know those people, those characters, and it's funny. It's maybe a little different from pop culture. It changes its meaning out of it, and that's why maybe they're still, quote unquote, experienced and used and listened to, watched, or whatever that might be. But maybe they're not necessarily pop culture anymore. Maybe. And a fifth and last, pop culture is specific to age groups, right? What's popular is usually dependent on the taste of youth, though. So first of all, pop culture is specific to age. So, again, going back to maybe compare your grandparents, your parents, and yourself. The type of music that you listen to, well, pop music that they listen to in their time are different, right? The different bands, different singers, different types, genre maybe even, they're different, specific to age groups. And more importantly, though, what's popular right now is defined and determined most often by youth, like people like you guys. A great example, I'm going to just go back to that, is TikTok, right? Social media, TikTok is booming, and there's so many dramas, business takeovers, and all that kind of stuff. US was going to ban and all that kind of stuff. Now, it's very short, right? 1 minute, 2 minutes, there's a restriction. 1 minute and a half, something like that. Not a lot of people like it, really. It's very short. It's very unique in that way. It's really that type of culture, quick and fun, basically. And where did it come from? Who liked it? It wasn't the grandpa and the grandmas who liked this TikTok, really. Maybe there are some grandparents who, older adults who like it, enjoy it, or even created videos. But it was really youth. And from there, TikTok became sensational, right? It's trendy now. Now, another good example, which kind of goes back a few years, I think it was like 2016 or 17, the previous presidential election in the United States, there was actually smartphone app that was trendy back then, which makes you look older. I know, that's weird, right? But it was really popular back then. And obviously, there's a rumor that it was actually used, created by certain people in a different country to hack and manipulate social election results and all that kind of stuff. That's fun. That's backstory. But think about it. A smartphone app to make you look older? Who likes that? Who you think likes that? Do you think old people like it? No, of course. No, of course not. They look old already. So the young people like it. And that's a great example how really something that speaks to youth and younger generation is the core and heart of the pop culture for each time. So that's the end of the 5 main characteristics of pop culture. Hopefully you have some better idea about what counts as a pop culture, what doesn't, and you understand each characteristics, and you can give me maybe example, okay? So we're gonna stop second beer here.